Sorry about that, folks.
Yep. Looks like there was a little bit of an issue.
Yeah.
And, well, let's just say shit happened.
hmm So, where were we?
Uh, I was about to say, before we got rudely cut off, that if you don't have any examples of the upper limits of your technology, you could run into an issue where, well, for for example, Numenera,
Yeah.
where that's definitely sci-fi, but Numenera, the sci-fi is so advanced, it's basically magic.
Yeah, it's like,
Uh,
what is the tech level of Numenera? Yes.
yes, it is it is the epitome of Clark's third law. But
Or,
with
and
that in mind,
mhm.
oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
There's also the fact that when dealing with tech levels in science fiction, you're dealing with a series of questions. And I know that Otherworlds refers to itself as future fantasy, but when you are dealing with that, you are still dealing with SF material in that.
hmm Just
Since
because you are future fantasy doesn't mean you don't have sci-fi elements.
hmm
So you do have to answer questions about how your science goes.
yeah,
So, so to continue from that, with these while these loose descriptors aren't perfect and don't encapsulate every area of a given world, it should provide a guide for you to work from. And then we have a side note. Some planets may have comparable technology to a time period we've shared, but may have some tools that go beyond what we had or currently have. An example of this is the time-infused weapons on Doragon, or the blood-stealing weapons from Transcell. Each of these are special in that they are unique to their respective worlds, and those worlds have resources that we do not.
yeah.
And while we said we weren't going to go over each world in detail, the 12 worlds listed are Grimora, Faragna, Transcell, Falden, Doragon, Zepiton, Arkwin, Christos, Brutana, Anthos, Yamanoko, and Xylos.
hmm Uh, I should note that of the ones that are present, which I listed the tech level when I did the bookmarks in what you're looking at.
Mm,
Only one of them is tech level 5, and that's Christos.
yeah.
And yeah, it does. It it's it's definitely set up with the whole high tech thing.
Mm.
Um, Although there's a few that are listed as point 0.5, which makes me wonder what point 0.5 would be in these kind of things.
Yeah, that doesn't seem very consistent, I guess is the best word.
I mean, it's clear that the tech rating is supposed to be a
Guideline.
yeah a guideline, an educated guess, whichever you prefer. But I think a few examples could certainly be useful.
They're more like guidelines, really.
hmm
If this game is going to make references, I'm going to make my own. I
Which
mean, I've
is,
been doing that this entire time, so it's like nothing's changing.
hmm
But
but
for example, something I'd like to ask, using a game I recently started playing as an example, the technology of Death Stranding with the chiralium and all of the things based on the chiralium, would that be 4 or would that be 4.5? Or would that be 5?
that's the problem with saying some of our sci-fi novels. I think tech rating 5 is supposed to be akin to the kind of, instead of using sci-fi novels, it might have been better to say space operas.
That would be much more clear and understandable. Yes, absolutely. Space operas. Then I could just say, "Hey, is tech level 5 the lensman?" And the answer would be yes.
Now, if it seems like I'm picking on that one, it's because compared to a lot of the other ones, that's the one that has the widest net.
Widest interpretation and vaguest boundaries.
Because I know that for a lot of people, their understanding of science fiction begins and ends with with Star Wars and Treks and the like. But
Both of which would qualify as tier 5, I believe.
yeah, but even when you just look at those two IPs, you still have a wide amount
Variation.
of variation when it comes to tech.
Hell, you have a wide amount of social innovation when it comes to those. I mean, just look at the Federation versus the Ferengi.
Let's not and say we didn't.
you, you, you don't want the space commies versus the space Jews? Now it's up to the audience to guess which is which.
When it comes to that kind of thing, I know I've done this gag before, but I'm gonna take Quark. I'm gonna put him in this impenetrable, bulletproof bubble. I'm gonna move that bubble right over here.
uh,
The rest of the Ferengi, fuck them. They should have been nuked from orbit. I'd say the Ferengi, and I'd say also the Herogen, and a few and early Klingons, um, and even some later ones are examples of what not to do with races. That being hyper focusing on one thing.
yep.
I bring up the Klingons because, with some exception, there was the cultural obsession with being a warrior became became a stereotype, essentially turning them into. I know some people say space Vikings with them, but really it feels like a stereotype of space Mongols.
They're absolutely space Mongols.
Mm-hmm.
They are Genghis Khan's golden horde.
Yeah, DS9 and Star Trek 6 are the exceptions to the rule to a point. And the Herogen, their entire society is all about the hunt.
Yep.
I may have mispronounced it. But you get the point.
Yes. But even with this wide, it's with these examples that we demonstrate that even with just a limitation to just Star Trek, there's a wide range of variation.
Mm-hmm.
This is why an example of where the technology cuts off at is going to be a better boundary than just saying some sci-fi novels.
I remember. I can't remember what game I was looking into, but I remember looking into a game that had a tech level setup, and it provided literary examples for each.
Which, that's fantastic. I know that when we looked at the Cyberpunk Red Easy Mode, it gave an example of books and movies that were influential towards towards Pondsmith, I should say.
Yeah,
It's
I
his brain baby, so of course.
I know that I pick on appendix N in the way that a lot of people use it as a get out of jail free card.
Hmm.
But the idea of an appendix N is something that can't be understated.
Yes. While we dislike how it is used as a bludgeon in argument, the value of it as what it is not to be understated.
Yeah.
But with the World Masters Guide, I think we have a pretty good set of guidance for anyone who would want to run a game of this.
Mm-hmm.
I
Uh,
don't I don't believe that there's a couple places where we want clarification. There's a couple places where we feel examples would be most required, especially with their own version of the one unique thing. That absolutely needs to be expanded upon. If you're going to have that, even if it's a variant rule, it needs to be expanded upon.
pretty much. Now, admittedly, this was going to be a somewhat lighter one because the World Masters Guide is a lot of it's a GM advice section. And truth be told, whenever I do reviews proper, the GM section is one that I tend to skim through because a lot of the stuff that it's a lot of been there, done that.
Yep. For both Monk and I, we've been doing this for a very long time. We have a lot of hands-on experience. The
The only exception is when it's giving advice that is setting or genre specific, which
which
is
is
which is why I was so harsh on the Power Rangers RPG for its lack of that.
Yeah. And even if it's something we'd normally skim over, we have if it's the been in the materials, we have read the GM related stuff before. Even with Emberwinds, we did that.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest reason for that, and we say this time and again, guys, everybody's every TTRPG has the chance to be somebody's first, whether they're playing, whether they're being a GM. A GM advice section has to be written with that in mind. And I'm going to be honest, this GM advice section, very well done for that. This would absolutely ease in new GMs. I just feel that there's a little bit of clarification, a little bit more examples, and it would be, to me, pretty much perfect as a GM guide.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and so I very much applaud this. This is a fantastic section. This is a great way to give a new GM the confidence they might need to run the game, and to give experienced GMs a little bit of a kick in how this game likes to be run. Because every game runs different, and you find it out not only because of how your players are playing, but there are idiosyncrasies to every game. So that's always something you have to keep in mind when you're GMing anything.
Mm-hmm. Now, next week we will be covering Friends and Enemies, which is basically going to be the bestiary. However, because of the sheer amount of length when it comes to it, and I am not doing an episode that is going to be 40 pages of monster entries.
Yeah, let's not say we didn't.
We are mostly going to focus on the crunch part leading up to leading up to the breakdown of how how these stat sheets are going to work for the bestiary.
Mm-hmm.
And everything after that is going to be um is going to be a case of, if you're that curious, then grab a copy yourself.
Yep.
I will note that I appreciate that there is a variety of types.
Variety is the spice of life. I assume that the Friends and Enemies section also probably has a section for creating your own creatures.
Um, to a certain point, Um,
I mean, you can't cover every aspect. It'd probably be its own chapter at that point.
it mostly has ways of tweaking it rather than full on creation.
Hmm.
Uh,
I'm sure
which
any GM who's experienced enough and worth their salt would be able to go
which
further than just tweaking.
I may prefer games do a full on monster creation system, but I'm also not blind to to the reality of things and how doing that can introduce a whole lot of crunch.
Hmm. It's all
But
about what fits the game.
yeah, but that is going to be the story for next week, and after that we will give our final thoughts on Otherworlds as a whole.
Hmm.
So thank you everyone for stopping by and indulging in our particular brand of madness. It is good to be back. I will be hopefully doing an interview with a returning good brother in tomorrow, and this Sunday will be the return of Geek Watch. I did have to call a bit of an audible when it came to scheduling because we're close to two holidays, but but it's not like this is the first year we're doing Geek Watch. We've run up against holidays before. As an aside, I hope all of you are managing to survive Whamageddon.
Remember, covers and remixes don't count, but which is why I gave Pentatonics' cover, a cappella cover to the entire Monastery this year. I wonder how many people are cursing me under their breath just for even giving them the song in general.
Yep. And of course, there will be a few other things that I've got planned, including us talking about the things that actually matter in the wake of the Game Awards.
I mean, let's be honest. Matan Evan does matter, considering that a 15-year-old managed to get up on the stage with the entire crew of Elden Ring from Software that was to accept rewards.
Mm-hmm.
And while he was just shit posting, that highlights a major security flaw. So thank you, thank you for highlighting to the Game Awards that their security is shit and they need to up it.
Mm-hmm. But that will be a story for another night. So until then, on behalf of the good brothers present and not present, my name is Mildra. I am your gaming monk. Stay fucking frosty, everybody.